Alright, so here's my F1 2024 driver predictions. I'm not doing the calendar because every time I predict the calendar order, it's hopelessly wrong. And based on this year's calendar, they're playing a random number allotment generator thing. So yeah, let's get started. Red Bull. To be honest, I don't see change at Red Bull. They've still got the reduction in wind tunnel time, which is going to develop next year's car and upgrades later this season. So I do think that they will try and stick with their existing lineup of Verstappen and Perez. But that ultimately depends on if Perez behaves himself. If Perez has another Monaco incident, that leads to another incident like we had in Brazil, then potentially Ricciardo could be back in a Red Bull. I don't see that though. I still think that it's going to be Verstappen and Perez as well. I think they'll try and work together and patch the relationship as well. Mercedes, I don't see change there either. Hamilton's out of contract, but I don't see anyone realistically being free to move into that team to take Hamilton's place alongside George Russell. Maybe a Norris, but the team isn't doing that great. I think Lewis will want to renew with Mercedes. I think Mercedes will want to renew with Lewis. They don't want to be shoehorning in somebody else when the car isn't there, especially when Lewis has still got such valuable team experience to give. At the end of the day, you don't just stop being a race winner after all. You know, he's still got that. If Mercedes can deliver the car in this current generation of regulations, then they can, of course, deliver Hamilton potentially an 8th World Championship. I don't think he'll retire until he's won that 8th Championship, but he could even go on longer. You know, he previously said he didn't want to race all these years in the future, but now it's looking like he's going to carry on racing until he either falls out of love with it or wins an 8th World Championship. Ferrari, a few issues both potentially, because obviously the serve will probably favour Leclerc at the team, but Sainz, you know, he had such a horrible race. 4th place, you know, could have been a lot better at Bahrain. He needs to have a better season. You know, if Sainz can have a good season, which I think he can, a better start, then you know he's not. You know, he has the pace to be able to at times outshine Leclerc. I don't think Fred will be looking to make changes just yet. I don't. Obviously, one of the big things is they don't have any Ferrari junior drivers near. So if they were to replace Sainz, it would probably be with like a Norris, but again, Lando's got a contract as well. Maybe an Ocon or a Gasly, but again, all have contracts. So there's no cheap options available that are going to be able to work good alongside Charles Leclerc in that team. McLaren, I don't see any change there either. Norris has still got his contract. I think he's going to honour that contract, but obviously the big question will come in 2026 is, you know, and that's when Audi really need to step up their efforts to get that what will be Sauber next season, get that team scoring consistent points, because that's what needs to be done. But I don't think Norris will be ready to jump yet. They're not that much on pace wise, considering the fact Lando had some good pace in the race. It's just the fact that he had to pit 78,000 times. You know, for him, I think he'll stick around. Piastri is going to be there at least for a couple more years, because at the end of the day, of all the saga of him getting that contract, I think he's going to stay with the team. And I think he's going to be a long term at McLaren, depending, you know, if he, obviously the car's not where he is, so he's unable to show his true pace. So he's unable to have a Norris 2021 season where he gets loads of podiums. But if he can be close to Lando, that would be a good yardstick for Oscar. But he has been out of racing for so long. I worry if it's going to That's the problem. Whereas like the others have all come straight fresh from F2 into F1, Oscar's been sat on the sidelines waiting for his chance. But I think he'll stick around at McLaren. McLaren really haven't got any other options there. Alpine? I don't know. I'm going to stick my neck out and say that Ocon and Gasly will still be there. This has been tipped as one of 3 fiery relationships on the grid, but I think they can work. I think they're going to put their differences aside and try and work together in team. I don't think that it's ever going to be Pally, but I think they've both got contracts for next year as well. So, or they've got options for contracts. So I don't think that Alpine will be letting them go quite so easily. I think that, having a all French team will benefit them, and it would benefit them if they had a French Grand Prix, but I don't think we're going to get that either. Now Sauber. This is where the first change. I know, I've gone through 5 teams already, and they've pretty much been the same as this year. However, Sauber, they don't really need the money. Have you seen the amount of sponsors they have? Zhou's sponsors account like 2 or 3. They could probably afford to lose those sponsors. And I'm not saying that's just because of Zhou. I think Zhou is going to have a better season, a much better season, if they can get that consistency correct. However, Audi have said they want to use Sauber's existing, and I say existing, young driver program, and the prime person in that position is Théo Pourchaire. Yes, Pourchaire has already done some pre-practice programs. He's tipped to win this season after finishing runner-up last season in Formula 2. I'm putting Bottas and Pourchaire, and getting Pourchaire in is crucial for Audi and Sauber, because obviously they need a younger driver. Like Zhou is now 23, 24, I think. He's not. The time we get to 2026, he's going to be in the mid part of his career in Formula 1. Should he still be on the grid then? Pourchaire, he's a lot younger than Zhou. He's had a few years now in Formula 2. It's time that he's going to either get promoted to F1 or he is quitting that Sauber team for sure and looking for a drive elsewhere. Haas. Obviously, Ferrari, I still think they've got influence there. Obviously, because I do think that they'll be looking, obviously, for a junior driver in the future to sit at that team. However, the problem Ferrari have is that neither of its junior drivers in F2, Oliver Bierman and Arthur Leclerc, yes, brother of Charles, they're not in. I don't think they're in a position. They've only just moved to that series, and they're not going to be in a position to be going into F1 based off the first race in Bahrain anyway. Their results. So I think Haas, for the time being, will continue with Magnussen and Hulkenberg, 2 experienced drivers. If they can have a bit of they can focus on the car. That's what they brought Hulkenberg in. Yes, they may not get along. An explosive relationship number 2 could fall out. But apparently they've patched up, apparently, in what Hulkenberg's been saying. We haven't heard from Magnussen there. But, yes. So, although the future might still see a Ferrari junior driver drive for that team, as Sauber's no longer that an option because, of course, they're moving away to Audi. It still doesn't. It means that for the time being, while those junior drivers gain experience in Formula 2, that the logical sense means that Magnussen and Hulkenberg should continue. I don't see them bringing in a Giovinazzi. Giovinazzi probably unfortunately finished his F1 career. AlphaTauri, if they're called AlphaTauri, because there are rumours that this team could be sold. as well. I think Tsunoda will stay on. I actually see Tsunoda now that Gasly's out the way, as a potential long-term successor to Sergio Perez. You know, if you can get that consistency, it depends how he performs against De Vries. If De Vries outscores him, then there's a problem for Yuki. But if Yuki can have a good solid season, get some points, you know, he didn't manage to get any at Bahrain, but bearing in mind the AlphaTauri is not a great car, and you know, Red Bull are definitely selling the team. It costs more to run than their main team, and it's paying them back a lot less. So they're definitely probably going to leave. I'm not entirely sure about De Vries. I don't know if he's going to stick with the team. There are so many Red Bull drivers in Formula 2. It's a joke. And there's also Liam Lawson as well, who's in Super Formula now. So I think that for them, you know, Red Bull are spending money developing this talent, and what for? If it's not to be an AlphaTauri, if it's not to be potentially a Red Bull in the future. Lawson, as I say, had a future. There's also like Fittipaldi and Maloney. Maloney did get a podium on his debut. Might be a bit too early for him. So maybe De Vries, you know, could be a backup should Red Bull decide that their junior drivers in Formula 2 and Lawson are not ready to make that step up to F1. Aston Martin, I mean, this lineup's been confirmed for about, I think, the next 4 years. Stroll and Alonso. Again, it's only a matter of time before Alonso falls out with Stroll and starts calling him our friend, like he did with Ocon. So yes, but for the time being, I think they're going to be able to get on well. It's just a matter of case of, can they keep up with the upgrades? Can they even catch Red Bull? Who knows? And finally, Williams. Now, Williams are starved of money. They do not have a lot of sponsors at all. The main sponsor is Duracell, obviously, but the thing is that where the Latifi money was back the rear wing, that rear wing now says Williams Racing. They ultimately need a title sponsor, but then I don't think that Duracell are willing to commit to being a title sponsor, and none of the other teams are really, anyone else, is not really willing to sponsor Williams that far down the grid as well. Will Logan Sargeant continue? That depends on if he can bring investment to the team. If he has a poor season as well, which based off his performance, he wasn't too far off Albon, finished 12th in Bahrain. The car looks a lot better than it has been, but whether or not they can keep that up for the entire season depends if they've built the car based on their strengths. But Zhou Guanyu would be available should he get replaced at Sauber. Now this could mean that Sargeant steps aside for monetary reasons as well. Zhou is going to be probably getting better this season, and if Williams, just like Haas, have that thinking of getting two drivers in to produce a car further up the grid, then I'm leaning towards Zhou over Sargeant at the team as well. Yes, it doesn't work well for the team long term, but they've got Albon there, and they can always look for Sargeant at a later date, or even dive further into any Formula 2 drivers that are, they could even ask Red Bull for some of them, because there are so many at Red Bull in Formula 2 that they could probably look to steal some of them that don't make the cut to F1. So yes, that's going to be my F1 2024 driver predictions. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you are new around here, then please do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. Until the next video then, I'll see you next time. Take care. Thanks so much for watching. Enjoy your day, and goodbye.